Okay, we are going to head to Idaho now, where accused Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell still stands trial for multiple charges, including the murders of her children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. She's also accused of the death of her husband, Chad's first wife, Tylee Daybell. If convicted, the Doomsday cult mom faces life in prison. Our very own Gigi McKelvey joins us from outside the ADA County Courthouse in Idaho. All right, Gigi, what's the latest from day 2 in this twisted plot and tale of this case?
Well, we've had Detective Ray Hermosillo on the stand all morning. He's with the Rexburg PD. He's been on this case since day 1, since even before they knew the children were missing. He's walked us through a little bit of an abbreviated timeline of when they were first contacted by Arizona authorities to be on the lookout for the Jeep that was used in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux, who testified yesterday, by the way, about that. He is the ex-nephew-in-law of Lori Vallow and ex-husband to Melanie Pulowski, who was in that group with Lori. And so we've progressed through the welfare check that was called in by Kay Woodcock, and now we've gotten to the point to where they have discovered the kids' bodies on Chad's property. So we saw a few crime scene photos of how the bodies were found, and the judge broke for lunch saying that the photos we were about to get into were much more graphic and would rather go ahead and call lunch break for everybody. So that's kind of how the morning has went. It's just been walking through from his perspective from before knowing the kids were missing to finding the bodies is where we're at now.
And Gigi, what can you tell us about Chad's phone being pinged near Tylee's, situation? Can prosecutors tie this to Lori at all? Did they mention the cause of death or of the children or of Tylee Daybell?
Yesterday, they did mention Tylee Daybell's cause of death was asphyxiation. They did not specify JJ's cause of death, although it seems like it may be some kind of a suffocation type death. And then Tylee Ryan, we've heard through jury selection, can you convict without knowing a cause of death? My theory is that that's going to be Tylee, because we know that Tammy was asphyxiated. JJ, it seems like it's going to be suffocation. Her remains were in such terrible condition. But yes, we did find out yesterday that Chad Daybell's phone was pinged right beside that pet cemetery where her remains were found, right where Alex Cox was the day after she was last seen alive, and at the time where we believe her body was being buried. So that was something new. We also found out there was some DNA on a pickaxe and a shovel on Chad's property, and as we know with the dismemberment, that could be tied to that and the shovel to the burial. So just unpleasant details all around in this case, and very heavy testimony today.
Yeah, listen, I find this case to be very difficult to follow. Like, if I were back in the prosecutor's office, I would have a timeline, I would have an organizational chart of all the people, and I mean, this is like, if we see a chart up there, I see right now that Law&Crime did, which I'm sure is excellent. Did the prosecutor do anything like this, or do you feel that the jurors are going to be confused because there's so many moving pieces here?
There are a lot of moving pieces. However, I think if I'm kind of figuring out the way the prosecution is doing this, is actually smart to introduce people one by one when it's appropriate, because there are so many players. If you have a graph up there with all these different faces and you probably won't be able to read the names, I think it's going to confuse the jury more. So maybe they're going to bring in these witnesses, explain how they fit into the puzzle, and go from there, because there are so many players. If you try to tell somebody about this case who's clueless, an hour into it, they're still clueless. It's just so convoluted. So I think maybe they're doing little bite-sized pieces with all the players in this case right now, and I think that's the way to go for these jurors who say they don't know much about this case at all.
And the jurors' reaction to the testimony so far, can you tell us about that?
Some of the photos we've seen were not very graphic, but disturbing nonetheless. And so I did notice a couple of the jurors seem to have a little sensitive reaction to that. It's going to be a little different after lunch, because we're going to be looking at actual autopsy photos and things of that nature. But it's clear that the family has been disturbed by what they've seen this morning. And just a couple of the jurors as well have had to divert their eyes and just look very uncomfortable while looking at Lori some of the time too, as these photos are on the screen, maybe to see how she's reacting, which I can't see because she's right behind a computer monitor from where I'm sitting today.
Okay, well, that answered the other question as to what the defendant's demeanor is, so I'll go to the next one. Gigi, tell me if you know, The jurors are disturbed by what they've seen already. Have there been motions made by the defense that showing these more and more graphic pictures, the prejudicial value starts to outweigh the probative effect? In other words, they should be limited or not brought in at all?
There have been a couple of objections by the defense attorney, Mr. Thomas, this morning, and they've been overruled because this stuff had already been admitted into evidence. They've had hearings about some of this stuff, but I imagine as we get into these more graphic photos, we'll start to see more objections about these coming in, although I think they have to come in. This jury has to understand what happened to these kids and how they were found.
And what about Chad Daybell's lawyer? Are we seeing him anywhere in or around the courthouse?
He's here today. In fact, a lot of cameras were just following him as this lunch break started. He was walking, trying to get away. He came in the main courtroom. I don't know that he stayed in there. I did not see him at break, but he might be down in that media overflow room just to stay out of sight of the main players up in Lori's trial.
All right. Gigi, great job. It's always great having you on. I know you got to run back to the courthouse. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for the great reporting.
Thank you.
You got it. And with that, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.